There were some fairly exciting mayoral races in Alberta this fall, and one of the big winners was Linssie Clark, who became the first female mayor of Medicine Hat. She joins us today to talk about some of the plans for the gas city, this thriving southern Alberta city. Mayor Clark, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. First of all, congratulations on becoming the mayor of Medicine Hat. Former Mayor Ted Grimm called you a rising force in politics. That's kind of a nice compliment. Were you surprised that you won by such a large margin, more than 4,600 votes over Ted Clugston?
Well, I didn't really have any expectations. There were a couple of polls, like a couple of Facebook polls that came out ahead of time. So had an inclination that if those polls had anything to say about it, I did have a good chance of winning, but certainly felt very blessed and overwhelmed to have seen so much support from the community.
So Mayor Clark, what was your motivation for running as mayor for the gas city?
Yeah, I really wanted to work towards restoring the good governance in the city, or augmenting it, building on the good governance. So transparency, accountability, and public participation. So those things are really important. And I want to make sure that our city government is acting in a way that's consistent with our community's values. And so I felt like we were drifting away from those a bit. And I really wanted us to realign.
Now, Mayor Clark, Medicine Hat, like many other cities, has dealt with suicides. There have been a lot of depression and anxiety during the COVID-19 pandemic. What's the plan moving forward to help those with mental illness? How will you be working with the province to address this issue?
Yeah, we need to build a really strong relationship with our provincial government, both the politicians and the staff that work so hard in their jobs to serve our province. And then as a community where these issues really, that this is our cities, our towns, our counties, that's where the people are. And they're the ones that are affected by mental health and substance use. So ultimately, we need to work together as a community to make sure we're not leaving anyone behind, to make sure that we're connecting with each other to build problem-solving approaches that include business and our local community partners and the Alberta government and the city and all the stakeholders, really. So everyone gets an opportunity to contribute their ideas, propose solutions, and have their concerns addressed.
Now, many cities also have a lot of challenges when it comes to addiction issues, crime, and poverty. Is the City of Medicine Hat going to be doing things any differently to bring solutions to these problems?
Similar idea with bringing together all of the stakeholders so that everyone's connected with the solutions. So business, it would be a stakeholder. Obviously, our community organizations who are already doing excellent work in these areas would be stakeholders. Our people in our community who have suffered with substance use, or who have family members who have suffered with substance use or maybe passed away from it. We need to be engaging all of these people, bringing all of us together to come up with solutions together.
Now, a big issue that came up during the municipal election campaign was the controversy over the city's process to contract out Invest Medicine Hat. Can you share a little bit about what you felt was wrong with the way that was handled, and as well what you plan to change with the process moving forward?
Yeah, this was a big issue during the election. My concerns were with the process that was used and whether it was fair, whether it was going to get us the best deal as a city, whether we were doing the right thing at the right time. So a new council was coming in, and it was a 10-year contract, and it would have precluded the new council from having a say on those very important economic development issues. So moving forward, we want to have a really, really strong economic development engine in Medicine Hat and our region. So collaboration, again, is going to be really key over the next 4 years, our regional partners and Medicine Hat have to work together to make sure that we're making economic development decisions that are good for Southern Alberta.
So what areas do you think the city needs to become more transparent and accountable to Hatters?
Overall, there's certainly some things that you aren't necessarily pertinent. Like you can't. It's a balance between flooding people with information, like and just giving people information that they need to participate in policy making, decision making, and holding the government accountable. It's easy to kind of overlook. Sometimes it's not even about, oh, we're withholding this information. It's just there's not an active engagement with the community. It's not constantly on your mind. Like we need to be transparent. We need to be accountable to our community. And so we need to focus on that over the next 4 years. Everything needs to be questioned. Why are we not disclosing that? Should be a question we're always asking.
Now, Medicine Hat has long been viewed as a city that is dependent on oil and gas. When I lived in Medicine Hat, it was wonderful too because I get my gas bill during the winter months, it'd be like 20, 25 bucks. I'm like, this is amazing, this is incredible. But moving forward, especially as a lot of cities are moving towards more green technology, what are your plans to diversify the economy in Medicine Hat?
So we need to develop an economic development strategy, which includes an industrial cluster study, and of course, business retention and economic development. Business retention and expansion and workforce development. I've said that acronym so many times, but sometimes it still trips me up. So overall, having that long-term strategic plan that understands what the gaps in your economy are and where you need to improve to allow businesses to be more successful in your community helps us to make decisions now. And so part of that would be, for example, there's very exciting things happening in the carbon capture arena and in the hydrogen arena. And the city of Medicine Hat is actively exploring these potential new revenue streams. And also with carbon capture and hydrogen, you have that added benefit of having the environmental benefits from that as well. So in addition to that, we need to, as a community that owns its own electric generation and distribution, we want to be making sure that we're resilient through the energy transition. And that's going to include bringing some renewables online, having a really diverse mix of renewable resources renewable energy in our community, and looking for more ways to offset our carbon.
Now, there were some reports recently that the British government was planning to reduce the size of the Suffield military base just outside of your city, Medicine Hat, which of course would affect your economic outlook. Do you have any updates on that for us?
I don't have any updates for you. This is an example of making sure that why it's so important to ensure that we as a city are collaborating and building really strong relationships with our region. It showed us, it reminded us that we succeed and fail as a region.
Now, Mayor Clark, I understand the Medicine Hat City Council will be cutting the overall budget again this year, but you'd also like to keep some of the local recreation facilities going, hopefully in their current neighborhoods, without necessarily having to build new facilities on the edges of the city. How doable or achievable is this while you're reducing funding?
Well, we have a Parks and Rec master plan coming forward to council early next year. What that's going to do is tell us a little bit more about what the state of our current recreation facilities are, and it's going to help us to make some decisions going forward. The livability of our neighborhoods is essential. That is our community. It's made up of neighborhoods, and so we need to protect that livability. Going forward, we do have to balance finances with what we may want, but overall, it is about prioritizing. We need to, once we do our strategic planning, we need to take a look at what are the priorities for our city, And that's going to help us to direct resources going forward.
When I lived in Medicine Hat as well, I covered the big floods in 2005, and I spoke to a lot of people in the flats, the neighborhood in the flats in Medicine Hat, saying, why are you still living here? You know, you guys get flooded like every 5 or 6 years, because we love the neighborhood, we're not going anywhere, but then they always get flooded out. So is there a plan moving forward to help some of those communities that, you know, deal with flooding almost on a yearly basis, or every 5 years?
Well, we have a system of berms in place now over the last several years since the big last big flood in Medicine Hat. We've started developing berms, and so that will provide some very important protections for people living closer to the flood zone. And there's that mapping that the provincial government has done to kind of show where the danger zones are for floods, and it is a really beautiful neighborhood, and we want to make sure that over time we are reinvesting in it so that it maintains its beauty over time.
Now, Mayor Clark, City Council has had some division over the years. What do you plan to do to bring more respectful dialogue and unity to City Council?
Well, it really is all about relationship building and trust. So I think as we go through our strategic planning, that trust is going to be developed and those relationships are going to be developed. We're not always going to agree on stuff, and that's okay. I think if you have the expectation that you'll never disagree with someone, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So we're expecting that we'll disagree and just acknowledging, like, okay, so we are going to disagree. How do we want to deal with that so that we are dealing with it in a really positive way?
How about attracting more business to the gas city? What's the plan moving forward in that regard?
So there again, it's the long-term economic development strategy with an industrial cluster study. We're actively looking to attract business all the time, for sure. But when you look at developing clusters, it's about making sure that you're looking at what the gaps are in your current, for example, supply chain, in your current industrial mix. So that if you're spending resources to go out and actively attract business to come, that business is going to be very successful in your community, and it's going to provide added benefits to the existing industries that are there. And so that requires a lot of work with the existing businesses and industry that are here, making sure that that they're able to communicate to us what they need, where are they feeling pressure points. And so part of that business retention and expansion is also attracting businesses that, for example, reduce their transportation costs or reduce their capital inputs. So we want to make sure that we're always really trying to integrate and create synergies within our own economic ecosystem here.
What about attracting more tourism dollars to Medicine Hat? You got the beautiful big teepee there. Is that kind of wishful thinking right now during a COVID-19 pandemic, or is that something you really believe can happen?
Well, we have an amazing organization, Destination Marketing, that does our tourism, or actively does tourism in Medicine Hat, and they are doing an excellent job. And they're collaboratively working with a bunch of other community organizations. It really is true that with COVID, people are traveling less, but they're traveling more locally. And so that proposes some opportunities here. We have excellent mountain biking trails here. So it's an outdoor activity that you won't necessarily, anyone can go outdoors with COVID, like in the COVID pandemic. So we want to be actively thinking about where it is that we shine, and we do have opportunities.
Linssie Clark is the newly elected mayor of Medicine Hat, Alberta. Mayor Clark, thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks for watching.